You did everything right. You were patient. You listened. You never raised your voice. You remembered every birthday, supported her dreams, held her when she cried, encouraged her when she doubted herself. You were loyal, honest, kind. You didn't play games. You never lied. And still one day, she turned cold. Her eyes stopped lighting up when you walked in. Her text got shorter. The warmth faded. And then came the words that shattered something inside you. You're amazing. I just don't feel it anymore. In that moment, everything you believed about love collapsed because you had followed the rules. You had done what the world told you a good man should do. And yet, you weren't chosen. Not fully. Not in the way you wanted. You were appreciated, respected, but not desired. And that's the wound no one talks about. The heartbreak of the man who did nothing wrong and still wasn't enough. In this video, we're going to strip away the illusion that being a good man guarantees love, loyalty, or passion. We'll explore why women pull away from the very man they say they want. We'll expose the hidden cost of being too agreeable, too predictable, too available. And we'll uncover the truth Freud warned us about over a century ago. A truth so uncomfortable, most men spend their whole lives avoiding it. You'll learn the difference between being good and being grounded, between being liked and being felt, between being respected and being wanted. Because here's the brutal reality. Being good might get you approval, but it will never ignite the fire. If you're ready to stop playing a role and start becoming real, stay with me. By the end of this video, you will understand why your goodness isn't the problem, but the way you've been taught to express it is. Let's begin. Number 1, the myth of the good man. Somewhere along the way, the modern man was told a lie so subtle, so flattering, that it embedded itself into his personality. He was told that if he simply became a good man, calm, emotionally available, supportive, consistent, that he would be loved, chosen, worshipped. He wasn't told this in one sentence. He absorbed it over time, from romantic comedies, from school teachers, from single mothers and pop songs. He was told, don't be aggressive, don't be too sexual, don't be too silent, be open, be soft, be safe. And so, without realizing it, he began to trade away pieces of himself. He sacrificed his intensity for politeness, his edge for harmony, his instincts for diplomacy. He became agreeable, predictable, pleasant, but not powerful. He believed that by becoming less threatening, he would become more lovable. And in doing so, he became something worse than disliked. He became invisible, because no one warned him of this, that what is good is not always what is felt. The feminine doesn't fall in love with a checklist. It falls in love with an energy. And that energy cannot be faked. It cannot be performed. It cannot be summoned by virtue alone. It comes from a man who is anchored in something deeper than public approval. Being good is safe, but it's also forgettable. It's not that women want cruelty. That's another lie. What they want, what they respond to, is aliveness, depth, polarity. A man who isn't afraid to own what he wants, to assert his truth, to move through the world without apologizing for existing. And that kind of man isn't always polite. He's not always easy to digest, but he's real. And in a world of scripted kindness, that reality awakens something ancient in the feminine. So the myth continues, be good and you will be loved. But the deeper truth is this. If your goodness costs you your presence, your edge, your agency, then it is not goodness at all. It is self-erasure dressed as virtue. And no woman will desire a man who erases himself. Number 2, Freud's warning, moral castration. In 1908, Freud treated a man named Edward. He was, by all accounts, the ideal gentleman, educated, loyal, well-mannered, a husband, a provider, a protector. He believed in restraint, in morality, in doing the right thing. He never raised his voice, never pursued his desires without permission. never broke the rules. And yet, the woman he loved, his wife, despised him. She didn't say it out loud, but she mocked his softness. She flirted with other men. Eventually, she left him for a factory worker with a violent past and a criminal record. Freud was disturbed, not by the wife, but by the man, because Edward, for all his virtue, was empty. What Freud called it was radical. He named it moral castration, not physical, psychological, a condition where a man, in his pursuit of being good, cuts off the very instincts that make him felt by others, his fire, his will, his edge. Freud saw that Edward had removed from himself every trace of unpredictability, dominance, intensity, and in doing so, he had become a shadow of what the feminine craves at its core, a force of grounded direction, a living polarity. You see, when a man erases his danger, he also erases his draw. The feminine doesn't need a man to be dangerous in action. It needs him to be dangerous in potential. She doesn't want a man who harms, but she wants to feel that he could and chooses not to. That his restraint is not the result of weakness, but of mastered power. Without that, she does not feel safe. She feels responsible. And a woman who feels responsible for your emotional strength cannot surrender into love. She becomes your caretaker, your supervisor, your therapist, but never your lover. This is what Freud feared would happen if society demanded that men neuter themselves morally, cut off the very instincts that had made them resilient, assertive, and alive. And now, 100 years later, we are living in the result. Men who are morally clean, but spiritually castrated, who are good, but not chosen, because goodness without rootedness is not attractive. It's just harmless, and no woman burns for the harmless man. Number 3, the nice guy syndrome. The nice guy means well. He wants to love and be loved. He avoids conflict, avoids pressure, avoids anything that might make a woman uncomfortable. He gives more than she asks for. He listens more than he speaks. He agrees more than he challenges. And yet, he's the one who gets ghosted, left on read, moved into friend zone with a soft apology. You're such a good man, but I'm not ready for this right now. And inside, the nice guy breaks. He doesn't understand. He did everything he was told. He respected her boundaries. He expressed his feelings. He was present, attentive, supportive. He never made her feel unsafe. But he never made her feel anything else either. Because what he doesn't realize is this. When a man leads with appeasement, he becomes invisible. Attraction is not built on safety alone. It's built on tension, polarity, an invisible dance between masculine depth and feminine chaos. When a man gives too much without being rooted in who he is, his giving becomes strategy, and women can feel strategy in their bones. The nice guy is rejected because he's bad. He's rejected because his kindness is often compensation, because behind his good behavior is a subtle hope that if he's soft enough, she won't leave. If he's agreeable enough, she'll choose him. But the moment you perform goodness as a transaction, she senses it. And the feminine does not respond to performance. It responds to presence. Jung would say the nice guy is possessed by the persona, trapped in the image of who he thinks he must be in order to be accepted. But because that image lacks soul, it cannot touch the feminine unconscious. It leaves her untouched, unstirred, unmoved. So she leaves, not because he wasn't nice, but because niceness without backbone becomes emotional weight, a burden, something she must carry rather than rest into. The tragedy is that the nice guy's heart is often pure. He means what he says, but because he abandoned his own center to earn affection, she can't feel him, only his effort. And no woman is drawn to effort that smells like fear. She wants a man whose kindness is not currency, but overflow, who doesn't need to be chosen to feel whole, who can say no without guilt, and who can meet her softness not by becoming softer, but by standing still in who he is. That is not the nice guy. That is the real man. Number 4, why she doesn't feel safe with you. Safety. It's what every good man thinks he's offering. He's calm. He's honest. He doesn't raise his voice. He communicates his needs. He respects her space. He's always there, always reachable, always gentle. But despite all of it, she doesn't relax. She doesn't melt. She doesn't surrender into him. Why? Because safety isn't about what you do. It's about what she feels in your presence. A woman doesn't feel safe with a man simply because he's kind. She feels safe when she can sense that nothing she does, no emotion, no chaos, no storm, can shake him from the center. Most good men are afraid of the feminine's fire. When she becomes unpredictable, emotional, or tests his boundaries, he begins to wobble. He reacts. He chases. He explains. He works overtime to fix the mood. He wants peace, not tension. But in doing so, he signals something to her nervous system. He is not stable. He is kind, yes, but he is not rooted. And so she feels responsible for the emotional tone of the relationship, not because he says so, but because she feels that if she falls apart, he might collapse too. That's not safety. That's pressure. A woman does not want to lead emotionally. She doesn't want to be the most grounded person in the room. She wants to feel that if she unravels, the man beside her will remain steady, not distant, not cold, but steady, unmoved, present. Carl Jung once wrote that the masculine must become a container for the feminine's chaos, not by controlling it, but by being unaffected by it, not dismissive, but untouched. He holds space not because he's trained to, but because his inner structure is stronger than her emotional waves. But the nice guy has no structure. His goodness is reactive, not grounded. And when her emotions test him, he becomes smaller, gentler. He retreats into apologies and self-blame. And with every moment of self-erasure, she trusts him less. Not because she wants him to be cruel, but because cruelty can still be felt. Cowardice cannot. So she smiles, says thank you, tells him he's sweet, and quietly she pulls away. Her body knows something she can't always explain, that being with him is safe, but only because she's the one holding the ground, and she can't hold it forever. Number 5, agency over approval. Attraction doesn't come from being accepted. It comes from being undeniable. Most men have spent their lives chasing approval. Approval from teachers, from parents, from peers, and eventually from women. It's the same pattern, just a different mask. Smile when she's upset. Nod when you disagree. Soften your truth so it doesn't offend. And then wonder why no one respects you, why no one feels you. But here's what no one told you. Women don't want men who beg for approval. They want men who are already approved by themselves. Because approval is external. It's fragile. It rises and falls with moods and moments. But agency, your inner authority, is eternal. And it's rare. Most men believe that being agreeable makes them lovable. But in the unconscious feminine, agreeableness is often interpreted as emptiness. If you do not have a strong yes or a firm no, if you cannot disappoint her with your truth, then what are you really offering? She doesn't want a mirror. She wants a man. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, distinct, rooted in the self. And in relationship, that process is not optional. When you give up your will to gain connection, you abandon your masculine core. And the moment you abandon that core, she stops feeling your presence. Your energy may still be there, but your essence is gone. That's why approval-seeking kills attraction. Because attraction, real attraction, is a response to sovereignty, to a man who lives by his own code, even if it costs him admiration, even if it means she walks away. And that's the paradox. When you stop needing to be chosen, you become the kind of man women want to choose. Not because you chased, but because you stood. Your no becomes magnetic. Your silence becomes charged. Your truth becomes a mirror that forces her to meet herself. And she either rises or runs. But you, unchanged. Agency is not control. It is orientation. It is the quiet confidence of a man who has returned to himself. And once you embody that, you will never again ask, what does she want? Because you remember what you are. And that answer is always enough. Number 6, from good to grounded. The goal is not to stop being good. It's to stop being good as a survival strategy. Because there's a kind of goodness that comes from fear, and another that comes from strength, one that pleads to be loved, and one that doesn't need love to stay rooted, one that adapts constantly to avoid rejection, and one that stands still in the face of it. You don't need to abandon kindness. You need to free it from dependency. The good man most people praise is often performing. His kindness is a mask, a shield, a silent contract. If I'm nice enough, you won't leave. If I'm soft enough, you'll love me. But the feminine doesn't fall in love with a contract. She falls in love with a current. And that current doesn't flow from control. It flows from grounded presence. To become grounded is to stop negotiating your truth. You don't become cold. You become clear. You don't dominate. You direct. You don't force her to follow. You simply walk and let your direction speak louder than your promises. A grounded man isn't swayed by mood swings, approval, or rejection. Not because he's numb, but because his emotional ecosystem begins inside, not outside. He can be tender, but never pleading. He can be vulnerable, but never leaking. He can be loving, but never lost in her. This is the man she trusts, not because he agrees with everything, but because he doesn't abandon himself in love. That's the shift. From good to grounded, from agreeable to undeniable, from safe to sovereign. And once you embody that, your presence begins to speak before your words. Her body feels you before her mind understands you. You stop being an option and become a mirror, a catalyst, a test she can't manipulate, a truth she can't ignore. And in that space, if love arises, it is no longer conditional. It's real because you are. So now you know, the problem was never your kindness. It was the way you used it to negotiate your worth, the way you gave yourself away, piece by piece, just to be seen, held, chosen. You weren't wrong for wanting love. You weren't weak for craving intimacy. But somewhere along the way, you believe you had to become small in order to receive it. And that belief is what killed your gravity. Because no woman can fall into a man who's still waiting for permission to exist. What she truly desires, whether she can articulate it or not, is a man who carries his goodness like a quiet fire, not as a performance, not as a plea, but as an extension of who he is. A man who doesn't ask, "Is this enough for you?" but who simply lives in the truth that he is enough. This is not about rejecting tenderness. It's about rooting it, about making your softness serve something deeper than fear, about letting your love flow from solidity, not strategy. So if you spent your life being the good man, the one who never made waves, who never got chosen but was always appreciated, this is your moment of return, not to become harder, not to fake edge, but to remember what you were before the world told you to behave. A man with truth, with direction, with presence. Don't perform it. Don't seek credit for it. Live it, and let her feel it before you speak a single word. If this video spoke to something you've been carrying for years, leave a comment. Share the moment you realize that goodness wasn't enough. And if you're ready to become more than agreeable, if you're ready to become grounded, subscribe for more. Because here, we don't teach men how to impress women. We guide men back to themselves. Thank you for watching. And wherever you are, stand tall. Because the man who stands in his truth never begs to be chosen. She simply feels him and chooses him because she can't help it.